Here we are on the second edition of our Top 10, starting with number 6, Boston Freedom Walk and the USS Constitution.
That's a map that shows the Freedom Walk, and we did walk the majority of it, not quite all of it.
It's just amazing. I mean, from here, the site of the Boston Massacre to the South Meeting Hall to Old North Church, there's just so much history, and a lot of this predates our country as to how old the buildings are. And you just don't see this type of history on the West Coast. I mean, the old South Meeting Hall here is actually still used for events today. You can see up there in the upper balconies, they have lights. It's wired for sound. I mean, it is still used for events today.
It's just kind of mind-boggling for us because we don't see that kind of history. We see local history where we're at, which is cool. But this is really global history. And to be able to be in those spots, it was a real privilege.
And out of all the big cities that we toured and went downtown to, by far Boston was my favorite.
That's funny because we dreaded it because of the traffic. We weren't sure what to think of it, but we loved it.
It is kind of funny seeing modern cars driving by Paul Revere's house. There's the Old North Church. And just what occurred in history at these locations is still just kind of mind-boggling.
I love that this still had the original money box from the 1700s, that people have been giving offerings there for 300 years.
Yeah, it's now in a plexiglass case, so it's protected, but they still have the original box.
And of course, the Constitution was one of the top things that you really, really wanted to do on the trip.
Yes, it was.
And it did not disappoint.
I love the Constitution. The only thing that I'm kind of bummed at is back when I was in the Marine Corps in the 80s, I had bought an old Revell model of the USS Constitution. It was like 3 foot long. And I was spending the time, I had hand painted all the detail work on the ship's hull. I was going through the whole thing trying to make it as accurate as possible. And it went through so many different trips, pack and moves to new locations, that it finally got so damaged that I did not think it was fixable, and I ended up throwing it away. And now I cannot find that model anywhere.
At least not for a reasonable price.
Right. Not for There are some people that still have that exact old Revell model, claiming it's still brand new in the box, but they want so much for it nowadays.
But it was really fun to be on that. And this is, again, something I had done as a child with my parents.
But again, the history here. I mean, this ship was named by George Washington.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing.
I mean, when you think about how old it is, yes, it's had a lot of repairs over the years, and things that were showing wear have been replaced. But there's still a percentage of that ship that's still
original.
There from the beginning.
So when we took the trip around the United States when I was a kid, one of the things I really wanted to do at that point was see the Statue of Liberty. And it just didn't happen. And I never thought I was going to get to see her in person. So this was really exciting to be able to stand there and actually look at the Statue of Liberty. We didn't go out to the island. It was another one of those with COVID restrictions. You have to have reservations. They had to have been made months ahead of time. But I was just really happy to be able to see her in person with my own eyes, be able to take a picture. I'm sure for people on the East Coast, seeing the New York skyline is, kind of old hat to them. But for us, it was really, it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's really real. Look at that. Here we are. We can see it.
Yeah, we came in through New Jersey to, I think it's called Flag Plaza. It's a park right on the shoreline, and you can see the Statue of Liberty from there. I think it's the closest point you can get to her without being on a boat. But we drove there, and I normally don't drive into big city areas like this, so that was a big event all to itself.
I mean, I felt like I could have just sat there all day, just taking picture after picture, which I kind of did. She's beautiful. In Appomattox, we had been to so many Civil War battlefields. I was kind of battlefield out. I didn't really want to go to any more, but this one, it's where it ended. We had to go. And I'm so glad that we did. It was so peaceful there. I think something of the, that's where hostility ceased. And that's where reconciliation was supposed to begin. There was a real attempt to respect each side and show friendship and camaraderie. Right at the end of the war there, soldiers were not allowed to disrespect soldiers that had been on the other side. They were told that they were supposed to look on each other as brothers now. And I think some of that you still feel there. It was very peaceful.
It's just amazing the artifacts that they still have present from both sides. I mean, that pair of boots there are General Joshua Chamberlain's boots, and he was an instrumental leader in Gettysburg and moved up through the ranks after that and was present here at Appomattox. And he was one of those that basically told his troops, you will not disrespect the folks from the South because they are your brothers.
In this tavern, they had a printing press set up there to print paroles for the Confederates when they left, so that they weren't going to be harassed. It basically said they had pledged not to take up arms against the United States anymore, so they were free to go. There was no, let's punish them, let's treat them as less, let's become brothers again. So they printed paroles, something like 30,000 in a few days,
lot.
And sent them on their way.
But yeah, just the knowledge of what occurred here. This is where the Civil War really ended, and where the rebuilding of our country as one country began. It was quite a powerful place to be.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad in a way when you look at it, though, how many battlefields we were at that have huge parking lots and crowds go to all the time, and how small the parking lot was here, and how few people were here.
And this seems like this is the most important one.
It was so pivotal in our nation's history and such a big part of that time. I think more people need to go and see it, and
more emphasis on the reconciliation than on the war. Yeah.
And feel it. I had heard about the Hunley years before we started this trip, and I don't even remember where I heard it from. But it was one of those things that I really wanted to go see, the Hunley. And this is an organization that has been working to restore it. They have it placed in a building, and they have done such a phenomenal job. This is a replica made of one of the first test submarines that they had that kind of led up to the H.L. Hunley. But they had so many artifacts, so much detail, so much information. This is actually a movie prop made, and it's like, what was it, 10% bigger or something like that?
Yeah, 10 or 15.
Because it was hard to fit the actors in, and they couldn't fit them in the original space. But yeah, it was just amazing the amount of detailed information they had on the crew, on the construction leading up to the Hunley, the testing of the Hunley.
And to me, I think one of the things that was fun is we love the movie Sahara, and that was based on a book by Clive Cussler, and they have NUMA, the National Underwater... Do you remember what it stands for? Anyway, they're underwater explorers. And I had just been looking on Google at one point because I enjoyed the book, and I thought it was really funny to find out that NUMA really existed. Clive Cussler actually had an organization called NUMA, and they were the ones that actually found the Hunley. So that was just kind of a fun little aside.
The Hunley's claim to fame was it's the first ever successful wartime submarine to sink sink an enemy ship in combat.
And it's so tiny.
They even used forensic scientists to reconstruct all of the crew from the skulls that were recovered in the wreckage, because the whole crew was still, from all the research they did, they were all still sitting in their positions. They were able to identify everybody from personal items that were still in the submarine. It was literally a time capsule when they opened it up. Now, Sonia's the tea drinker of the family, but what I really, really enjoyed about the tea plantation was learning the whole process, how it's grown, how it's harvested, how it's processed after harvesting. It just was a fascinating bit of information to discover of how it's all done. I mean, they have a special tractor specifically built just for harvesting it. I've never seen a tea plant before and didn't realize how they grew.
Yeah, it was surprising to find out they grow. It just looks like hedges. And I think this place surprised us because I was interested in it. You were willing to go. And we both liked it a lot more than we expected to. So there's the tea plants. When you drive up, it just looks like rows of box elders or something. I love the trees they have in the south. They're so pretty.
And this is the only tea plantation in North America. This is some of the other tea plantations around the world, and you can see from the distances they're a long ways away. But even the small fact that your differences between green tea, black tea, oolong tea, or the other types of teas is not the tea plant itself, but how it's processed after the fact.
And they have, of course, samples inside that you could taste the tea. And you found to your surprise that you actually really liked some of it.
There was a raspberry iced tea they had there that was wonderful.
And this, that tractor.
Yeah, this is the one-of-a-kind tractor they had made. And what they'll do in the springtime before the harvest begins is they'll go through and they'll cut all of the hedges with this tractor. They won't harvest that first cut, but then as it grows, they cut the top 3 to 5 inches off as it grows, so it's the new fresh growth, and they bring it into the machines here to do the harvesting or the processing.
It would have been really nice to be here while they were actually processing the tea, because it would have been fun to see how the machines work. But, I mean, you still get to go through. They have things that explain what their equipment is and how it works and what they do. But it would have been fun to see it actually in process.
As you walk through, they have TV screens showing you the machines in action, but it would have been more enjoyable to see the actual machines running. And that's it for our top 10. It was, again, very difficult to come up with a top 10 with as many amazing things as we saw.
It was fantastic.